What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheet-Saber. We are going to be going through week 2 of the NFL season. I didn't have a great week 1, as we talked about on the Monday review show. I thought I did some things well. I didn't. What we basically had to do, in order to win a giant tournament was, we could even have taken a loss at some guy. You could literally have had negative points from your receivers in certain cases and probably still won a bunch of money if you just did the Hill, Kelsey, Mahomes pairing that we talked about. And yet I just couldn't find the trigger to pull because I thought enough of the running backs in the 5K range were going to go off. Didn't quite get me there, or in the high 5K and early 6K range would have gone off. And I spent a little bit on my wrong receivers. But Sheets, what are your first sort of like from an overall 30,000 point, whatever they say, 30,000 foot point of view? Is there anything specifically that stands out to you immensely on this slate?
Like I said last week, I just kind of want to get I highlight a couple of games, and just hope they go off. I mean, that's basically my plan. And I have a couple of games I have a couple of key spots that I think work. I don't know what the ownership's going to look like on them, but maybe they will end up too chalky. But what I'm going to just do again, pick a couple of maybe like 5 games, like 5 teams I want to stack for sure, and then kind of just run my projections and let the optimizers with low ownership scales just kind of build me some others until I get a little better sense of what's going on.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's pull up your screen and start going. Okay, let me give you the thing right there. No, it's going. Pull up your screen and we'll go game by game here because this is our first look, guys. I'll have some other shows with Rody later in the week. If we can get, Sheets to do another one or two, maybe we'll do an updated one closer to the game time. But I want to make it clear, this is the first look and maybe a way we can start looking at what we want to build. And one thing with the NFL is, I was talking to Sheets pre-show, is that the first thing last week, and then I mentioned it just a minute ago, was the first thing that stood out to me was, what are we doing? Why don't we just play KC? And I know that sounds like the obvious thing to do, and they're going to be popular and all this. Well, the combination of Mahomes to Kelsey and Hill weren't last week. So sometimes your first thoughts can be one. And there's one game that I have significantly ahead of the rest this week, which feels kind of good. It's not this first game. I'll tell you that. Buffalo, Miami, you have Buffalo as a 3-point favorite on the road. I expect them to bounce back here and play pretty well. I went into that Miami New England game. I did say I like Miami in that game last week. And I like Miami in general as a team. Buffalo is going to put up some points in this game, though, even against a good defense. I don't think you're going to see that. I mean, the Pittsburgh defense was absolutely outstanding. Allen looked like the old Josh Allen, not the good new Josh Allen. I think we see the better Josh Allen. So I have no problem with an Allen to Diggs partnership this week. I just don't have anything that I want to bring it back with. Am I missing anything here, or what do you think of this game?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the ones I want to play. I want to play Allen. I want to play Diggs. I want to play Sanders, and I want to play Parker. That's kind of what I want to do. And this is just one of the ones that I'm just kind of just jamming in there, just taking a shot. I was between Parker and the other guy, the guy that had the good game last week, but I think Parker's a little more reliable, and I think Buffalo coming off of a really, really just surprising, disappointing just loss in the fourth quarter yesterday against Pittsburgh. I think they're going to come out firing, and I think that they're going to have a really nice game against Miami. I think Miami's going to have to come back, and I'm kind of into this game a little bit.
Yeah. So you're talking about Jalen Waddle. Is that what you were?
Yeah, that was the other guy.
So the issue I have with playing against Buffalo, I tend to like secondary receivers if I'm going to run back something against them, just because they're all their corners are good, but their prime corners are really good. And so if it's up to me, I think I would be looking more to Waddle. But the problem is I can't figure out for sure who the number one receiver is. I think it's still Parker, but I mean, I think that it's that's sort of the argument. So I have no problem run back with Waddle. And I do my NFL stuff a little differently than I don't just have plays and then try and, fit them in or whatever. I'm trying to get my actual combinations and stuff correct. Because even though, as we talked about on Showdowns, maybe game flow doesn't matter. I think you would agree with me that it's like the most important thing when it comes to actually trying to win at DFS, right? Trying to predict the game script is for the most part, right?
When it comes to football?
When it comes to football, because you're talking about, I mean, if Buffalo's up 31-0 at the halftime, you will on a receiver, possibly on Miami. You won't want to, but if they get it with a defensive touchdown or whatever, the game, if the team's up by 3 or 4 scores, they're not going to continue airing it out these days.
Yeah, no, I agree that. So I don't want to say no. I want to say this the right way. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that the game script is going to determine to some degree, you know what I mean, like what happens with the game. But when you're saying predict the game script, I mean, do you want to like rely on what Vegas says to infer the game script, or do you want to try to do better than Vegas to get more upside? You try
to figure out. So the example would be like last week when you play. I was a fan of playing Hunt in my stacks with KC, assuming that you're going to have the hammer. KC put the hammer down and throw the ball and all over the field and score a bunch of points, and that Cleveland will be coming back mostly for the game. But the reverse game script would be Nick Chubb on one side, and then you play the other side of the KC passing game because they, Cleveland gets out to an early, multi-score lead with Chubb running the ball. That kind of thing is what I mean. So right. I try to do it both ways, and if I really like the game, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stack it every which way that I can fit it. It doesn't matter as much in this particular game because realistically, I mean, Josh Allen is their running game anyway, especially with where they're at right now. Maybe you could make an argument for Singletary. It's a good defense, but he will have opportunities. I just think that Josh Allen is their goal line back. He's their regular back, and he's their quarterback. So it's no matter how, even if I don't stack this game up, even if I don't run it back with one of the Miami pieces, I do want to have a ton of exposure to Josh Allen. That's just where I'm at.
Yep.
All right. And for what it's worth, I'm just going to take a quick look at Waddle's numbers. I mean, it's funny. We talk about how, Waddle had the nice game or whatever. It wasn't even that big of a game, to be honest. And Parker's price just on that alone. It's like they basically had the same game except for Parker didn't get in the end zone. So I'm okay. I do think I prefer Waddle, or I think I prefer Waddle a little bit over Parker, but I like both of them. So I think that's the script you run. You played Allen to one of Diggs or Sanders. I don't love playing Josh Allen with 2 wide receivers in general, just because he tends to run the ball enough, and it's hard for both guys to win on a giant slate. But Sanders is cheap enough to where I can get behind it. So,
well, I mean, speaking of game script, I mean, I think that Cleveland and Houston, I think it's pretty safe to say that Cleveland as a 12-point or however their big favorite creates a very favorable game script for someone like Nick Chubb, right? So the idea is that Cleveland gets the lead, and then they just kind of just cram it down Houston's throat, and just Chubb gets some might get points in the run it up phase. He might get points in the close it out phase, and it just seems to be a pretty good idea to play him. I guess Cleveland defense would seem to make sense too, for similar reasons. And we don't talk about this too much. Where is the industry nowadays on the correlation between defense and running back? It used to be a thing, and then people were like saying, it's not that big of a deal. Where are you at with that type of
I don't think it should be automatic, but if I have it, like if you have a strong take on a team really killing another team, I think it does fit in, and it does make sense to try to play it, but I don't think you need to try and overly cram it. Like if there's another defense you like at 3,300 and you only have 3,300 left and you're using Chubb, I don't think I would try and rework my lineup to try and make sure I had to have the Houston defense in that case. Okay. I think it's worth it to where if you had 3,800 or 3,900 left, I probably would use Cleveland's defense higher than I would even a defense I liked more. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's my issue with that. And we don't know what's going to happen with OBJ in this game. I don't see it as a game where they need to air it out a ton. However, I think they're going to be able to air it out. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens. And because of the total, I think that you could make an argument for a Baker combination with one of these guys. I just don't think that's where I'm going to go. If OBJ does play, I'm going to have some interest in trying to take some shots with him. But that's pretty much it. I think Landry is always a threat to have a big game. They use him all over the field. He's going to have from a PPR standpoint, from a touchdown upside, because they even ran him at the goal line. They had a running play for him last week. So I can see it, but I just don't think I'm going to prioritize it in this particular slate. And I'm actually more interested in maybe looking at Brandon Cooks on the other side of this game. Tyrod Taylor is a much better quarterback. I feel like than ever. He had some injuries and stuff like that. I'm not saying play Tyrod Taylor, but if he shows he can get the ball to Cooks like he did last week, and they're down by a bunch, and you're getting a lot underneath, and then maybe one over the top play to him, you could see a big game from Cooks. So I actually think Cooks might be my highest interest level in this game from the Houston side. Don't think I could bring myself to playing Amendola.
What about the guy I mentioned? You like Chubb at all?
I do like Chubb. I like Chubb in the Cleveland defense. I think that's a really good place to start. I think it's going to be popular. No problem with it. I like it.
Okay. I guess I'll start with Cincinnati, Chicago. I think similarly. I mean, I think I like both running backs in this game a little bit. I don't think the game particularly is a really good game to stack or to expect to go off, but I do actually like both Mixon and Montgomery, just from a projection standpoint. I mean, Chicago is kind of tough to do much against in general. I don't know if that's really the same this year. I mean, they had a tough game against the Rams. Rams are really freaking good. So I don't really fault Chicago. Actually, I kind of like the way Chicago played a little bit. They're just a little. It
was a closer game than the score was for sure.
Yeah, they're just a little undermanned. You know what I mean? I think eventually they're going to have to let the other quarterback roll. Maybe it's this week. Who knows? But I think that Montgomery continues to be kind of a focal point of what Chicago might want to do. I think similarly, I mean, Chicago's 4-point favorite. I think that they could make a case for Montgomery and the Bears defense. Bears defense could use a good bounce back game, and Burrows was really, Burrow's a slinger, man. I mean, and that's good and bad, right? I mean, he could certainly rack up some yards, but he could throw some picks. So stick with that same theme. I think Montgomery Bears defense is certainly viable. I don't think that Montgomery's going to be the highest owned running back by a long shot. So I think that's in play a little bit. I didn't quite get so much of the quarterback receiving combos in this game. I think this game relative to the others is kind of weak, but I like both running backs in this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am okay with both running backs in this game, and I like both. I like the receiving sides of both this game.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I think Chase is legit. He's really talented, and I think that again, though, we got the injured T. Higgins last week, so who missed the last quarter and a half, I want to say, of the game, and not to mention overtime. Still, Joe Burrow to T. Higgins was the winning lineup, although it didn't have a run back and it had the whole rest of the KC game stacked, which is the way they were able to do it, was saving at quarterback, oddly enough. I don't think I'm going to stack this game, but I don't really want the quarterbacks too much, even though I think Burrow's going to put up big numbers in a lot of weird spots this season. But I do like Robinson, Higgins, and Chase, with a little nod to even potentially, going back to Tyler Boyd when no one's going to play. And they're all just cheap enough to where I expect one of them to have a big game, but they're not priorities for me. And I like Robinson on the Chicago side is my only interest over there, but I'm okay. I do like Mixon because of how much is on the field. I think Montgomery is an underrated running back and what seems like a good spot, although we just saw Dalvin Cook in this spot, struggle to get 20 fantasy points in overtime. I don't know if I'm going to make Montgomery a priority, but I don't mind it. Montgomery and Mixon are definitely in play for me, but it's just not high on my list.
Who also had some targets. Again, it was a tough matchup, but they really were going to Mooney quite a bit in the last. I think he had like 7, 8 targets, something like that.
Yeah, I like Mooney's the other one I have written down, but I just don't know that by the end that he's going to make the most sense at 4,200 with some of the other guys we've got out there. In fact, you could make it just as good an argument for Marquise Goodwin as you could for Mooney, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because I mean, we know he's talented. We've seen him put up games with the Niners and stuff, and you hit one big play to him, and then anything else is a bonus, basically.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. This next one, which shouldn't be, but. Wait, no, it's not. It's not the next one that's interesting. Why don't you start off with New England, Jacksonville, and your level of interest here?
You mean New England Jets?
Jets.
Yeah, I don't have a shred of interest in anything here. I mean that to me this screams of 17-7 or something like that. I'm really not the slightest bit interested in anything.
Yeah, I'm heavily interested in the defense for New England in this
Fair
game.
enough.
And I also like Damien Harris. Was really close to having a big game last week, and actually did have a good, a nice solid game for his price. The guys, The only thing that makes me nervous is that he did have a bad fumble that may have, it probably did cost them the game. We haven't seen a guy get that workhorse in New England in a while with 23 carries and a few targets. And, if he ends up getting in the end zone one of those times instead of the fumble, he ends up with a monster week. I'm just worried a little bit. I think they're still going to go to him like crazy. I think he's still their guy, but James White having a decent game, I don't know. He doesn't really run the ball. That's the only thing. So I don't really know who else they're going to use, but I just worry a little bit how Belichick's history is with young guys who fumble the ball in key spots. But I do like Harris with the Patriots D.
Yeah, sense to me.
And Harris is one of those guys who didn't get his price raise, which is kind of nice. So you get 20 fantasy points out of him at 5,400. I think you're okay because you can spend up on some of the big high end receivers. All right, let's talk about Denver and Jacksonville. This is a weird one too. I somehow skipped ahead before when I thought we were going to go to a different game. But what are your levels of interest in this one?
First look, not a lot. I'm looking. I'm not getting to any of my keys, my stacks or anything like that, and even some of my cheaper one-offs. I'm not really getting to much of this. Oh, I'll tell you who I like. I brought him up last week. I like Fant at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Jerry Jeudy is going to be back. I know he was hurt for a little bit, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's going to be back. And if he's not back, then you have to talk about, he went to injured reserve. Okay.
Yeah, he's out.
So all these receivers become like kind of, I got to figure out who's supposed to use the KJ Hamler or whoever it is. But I definitely think that puts Fant more in play as well.
I agree.
So I think the Fant would be my preferred play from this game. And I don't think I'm going to go back to the Melvin Gordon train. Although, I mean, they got the game script. Boy, that would be kind of funny if he went off 2% on again and won someone $1 million 2 weeks in a row. That would be pretty crazy. But I don't get to him at first look. So for me, it's like Fant, and that's pretty much the extent of my interest.
Yeah, I can't do Melvin Gordon. He got less work than Javonte Williams last week, even though he just put up the game. If anything, I would probably lean towards Javonte Williams probably this week. But I like the idea of the receivers somewhere between Sutton, Patrick, Hamler, and then as you mentioned, Fant, who's probably the correct option. But all of these guys have upside. All of them have enough talent. They're familiar enough with the system there. They've been there. I know it's a little bit of a different system now, but the Denver defense, again, is going to stand out to me the most in this game. And I think there's going to be a time this year where you're going to see some big games out of these Jacksonville receivers for their prices. I mean, we saw a good game from Jones last week, but Chenault and DJ Chark, maybe you could make an argument for these guys as an option. I just don't think it's my priority on this slate, so I'm not really going to pay too much attention to it at first glance.
Yep.
All right, San Francisco, so frustrating. I don't even want to think about that. That's what really cost me. I feel like the Mostert thing right away, and he's gone for the year.
I'm so glad that I missed that. I was out. I didn't even know any of it that happened. I am just very, very glad that I missed it, because I would have been, just to let you guys know, I would have been, if I were there and I was home, I was paying attention, I would have been right on Mostert like everybody else. I completely benefited by being lazy and not being lazy. I was away, but by not being by not being on top of it. So yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's just weird that now to figure out what to do with their running. It was really frustrating. But even if I didn't have the news, I was still going to go heavy on Mostert. Okay. And the running game did an incredible job. Trey Sermon should be back in this week. We still don't know for sure. I'm not going to touch their running game, even though I like it in general. I can't figure out a way to do it that makes me feel good. And it was Deebo Samuel week last week. I do have interest in Brandon Nyuk this week to sort of bounce back. He wasn't really seen or heard from. They were looking for basically big plays or running plays or nothing. And he's questionable, but assuming that he is okay, I think he's a mildly interesting target at no ownership, I think. And that's again, just secondary piece, but I do want to get exposure a little bit to the game because it's a good game. I think Jalen Hurts it's a tough matchup, obviously, against the Niners defense, but I kind of like what Jalen Hurts can do. He feels like he's got a very high floor as a quarterback. And then you've got the really cheap receivers you can pair them with, from Devontae Smith to Jalen Reagor. So I have mild interest in the Philly-San Francisco game, but I just can't quite find anything that I feel really good about, except for maybe Dallas Goedert at tight end.
Yeah, this game is a pass for me. I will say that I think that Jalen Hurts is in play most every week. I don't think this is one of those most, though. I do like the San Francisco defense in general. Don't let the garbage time stuff at the end of last week get. I still think they have a very good defense.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not going to play Jalen Hurts. I'm really not going to. I don't think I get too much anybody from this one.
Yeah, I do think Goddard has got an argument for him, but I think that hard for me to find plays I really feel comfortable with on either side, to be honest with you. So we can kind of just go through it, I guess. And again, this is still just a first look, so things could change by later in the week. Rams and Indy. Okay, you know how I wanted to try to spend this year attacking the Indy corners. I think this is a good spot to do that. I think both Kupp and Woods are in play. If I had to give the edge, I'd probably give it to Kupp. Van Jefferson as our showdown guy. We don't use him really for regular DFS, but I don't mind a Stafford, a Stafford to Kupp combination. And here's the thing. So Indy plays really slow. Okay, that's their whole thing. They're like Tennessee a couple years ago. They want to run the ball. They want to control the clock. They want to do whatever they can to not let Carson Wentz make too many decisions. And the Rams defense is not going to allow for this. It's just too good of a D line. I know David Montgomery had a decent game and all that. I'm certainly not talking about playing Jonathan Taylor this week. He is 7,200, which is pretty reasonable for him, actually. But I think that the Rams can speed this game up with their just forcing quick, whether it's a turnover or quick outs. I love the Rams defense actually in this game. I want to try and attack Wentz in general. And I know the Rams are going to be expensive, so I don't think I'll actually end up getting to it. But I really want to try to find a way to play a combination of Stafford to one or both of the receivers. Maybe one of the receivers and Higbee would be the way to go. And then I want to run it back with Pittman, with the guys from Indy who let us down last week. Pittman, Pascal had the big week, but I think it could just as easily be Paris Campbell, who's a cheap option. So I kind of like that combination. This is a game I'll have as like not my primary stack by any means, but I do like this spot a lot.
I like Cooper Kupp from this game. He's showing up as kind of a one-offish, not one-offish, whatever it is, a good play. I don't think, again, this is not one of the games I'm going to be keying. And it's funny, you seem like blast through some of these guys. I don't like this. I don't like this. There is stuff I'm going to get to, but I do like Kupp as kind of a one-off. It would be an interesting idea to go back to, and again, this is what people like to do in football. And I've just seen it work a lot is last week, like Michael Pittman, disappointed a bunch of people, and you get like a good game script for, Indianapolis having to come from behind, Pittman maybe at much lower ownership might be worth doing. I will also say, by the way, if we don't get around to doing another video, I happen to think, by the way, that I do like Indianapolis. I think they're a pretty live underdog here against the spread.
Okay. Well, there goes. You're ruining my Rams love here. Come on, man.
They can win.
All right. I think that the talent level between the teams is pretty vast, but it's a home game in the NFL.
No, it's not even that. I mean, I just have a lot of luck with a lot of fortune with these types of things. Like when they had a beautiful freaking stadium, and the Rams, they had to sit there with no fans like the whole freaking year last year, and they came back with a brand new quarterback, and the place was freaking electric, and they put on a freaking show on national television. Then they're going on their first road game after that. It just seems kind of like poised for your typical type of letdown situation, so that's the only reason. I'm not disputing that the Rams are better than the Colts.
Yeah, no, I understand totally. All right, let's talk about Pittsburgh and the Raiders here. Raiders had a short week. I'm going to be all over Najee Harris, and no one's going to talk me off of it. Simple as that. I think he's a priority play for me. I don't care about the lack of production week one against Buffalo. I think he'll have a much easier time against this Raiders defense. And he is the guy I have the most interest in this game. I think you could make an argument for any of the three receivers, but I'm not going to because I don't have them as a priority at first look. And then you have the really, really, really cheap Raiders passing game, which I don't think I want to prioritize by any means whatsoever. But I do think that I want to get exposure to Edwards and Ruggs, especially, and maybe even consider a Renfrow lineup or two. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. Maybe I respect the Pittsburgh defense. I don't want to take any quarterbacks or anything like that against them, but just the price of Edwards and Ruggs, especially like Edwards can catch a bunch of balls, what Ruggs can catch one, he's a big play guy. I think that just at these prices, they've got to be on the list for value, right? Like, I just think that they make sense somewhat to me.
Yeah, the best wide receiver on Vegas is Darren Waller.
Yeah.
He's priced as such though. He's 7,600. So when I did my stats, did whatever, I found myself getting to basically almost all of my lineups with Najee Harris. So I'm with you on that. I didn't even know he had a bad game last week. But in any case, I'm with you. He's my favorite running back by a semi-decent amount on the whole slate. So he's going to show up for me a lot. And yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said there.
All right, well, let's move on.
Actually, I don't want to say that. I did not have the same interest in the Raiders passing game, just because, again, like, I don't know. I mean, I where do you go with it? I guess there's Waller, then Ruggs. Yeah, Ruggs, Renfrow, more of a possession guy. Yeah, Edwards had flashes, whatever. But yeah, I kind of want to. I'm going to stick with Harris and maybe the Pittsburgh defense in this spot.
Yeah, it's just Ruggs that can catch a big play is really the thing that Pittsburgh will blitz, and then Bryan Edwards, who is still, he's 3,700, and even in a sort of a downish kind of a game, or not a downish kind of week for him, he only had 5 targets. He still had 12 fantasy points. He's, I think, a reasonable play at his price at 3,700. I just think that's a really cheap price. So Ruggs, I think that one of the Raiders receivers are definitely in play. I just don't know which one I'm going to side with the most yet. Just it's a price thing. Okay. New Orleans and Carolina. We have a 44.5 total, and we have 8 New Orleans players who tested positive yesterday for COVID. I don't even know who they are. I would like to, for this game, probably just hold off and wait to see who's playing. I don't know what else to do at the moment, personally, just with the situation in New Orleans the way that it is, because Callaway, Deontay Harris are both interesting to me on the New Orleans side, and then on the Carolina side, obviously Christian McCaffrey is not only in play all the time, he's really in play all the time. You feel like you're fading everything for him not to score 40 fantasy points. It's just, there's so many opportunities for him. He almost had 100 yards receiving and rushing last week, even in a game where they weren't effective. DJ Moore, I love as a receiver, but New Orleans defense I believe in. So I think I'm probably mostly off this game, and I'm also worried. Like, I don't know what to do without knowing the COVID levels and who else is going to test before Sunday.
Yeah. I like, presuming everybody goes, which is kind of a ridiculous assumption. I like Kamara, the Saints, if he plays. I don't know, like you said, I don't know what's going on over there, but I like Kamara just based on projections and all that, assuming he plays. And on Carolina, interestingly, I like McCaffrey, and I'm also getting just a great amount of this guy I've never heard of. Marshall at 3,300. I guess he's going to be the chalk value if I'm getting to so much of him. So I do like that. T. Marshall Jr.
Yeah, Terrence Marshall.
What's that?
Yeah, Terrence Marshall. Yeah,
Terrence Marshall at 3,300. So I do like that. And again, like you said, we'll step to see who's eligible to play.
Yeah, I understand the Marshall thing, but if we're going to play the third string receiver, why wouldn't we play a Raiders receiver who's like a first, second string receiver at the same price? I don't really understand that.
Fair enough.
So I don't necessarily know if I agree about the Terrence Marshall thing. I think that he's a good play, but if he's chalky at all, just don't play him at all.
Okay.
That would be my take.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, Minnesota and Arizona. We know Arizona games are games we want to target all year. I don't think much of Minnesota's defense either. I think that they're supposed to be better, but I don't trust it. I like Arizona in this game, and I think this game has got some real potential to. I mean, you've got some really good options across from each other. Last week it was Thielen. I still love Jefferson. I think Jefferson, Hopkins, Murray is a terrific 3-man combo to run out, and I will be getting some of that for sure. That's mostly what I've got from this game. I will throw some Thielen in there as well.
Yeah, as I mentioned, there were 5 teams I want to target. I mentioned Buffalo is one of them, and Arizona is another one. So there's Murray, there's Hopkins. I personally was getting to, according to my stack stuff that I'm running right now, I'm getting more to the Rondale Moore as opposed to the Kirk. But certainly you can't argue with Kirk.
They were looking for Rondale Moore too, by the way. He just gets a lot shorter. Just keep in mind, part of the projections are going to like him because he's got more sure production, but Kirk is more of the home run type of threat, you know?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But I do like that. And like you said, as far as the run backs go, last week is Thielen. This week could be Jefferson. You certainly can't go wrong with either one. I mean, honestly. Mm-hmm. I think all of it look like every year. I mean, I think all of Arizona's games are in play, and all of them can just. I don't know if Minnesota. Well, also let's not forget that Dalvin Cook is a very strong play. Before we
absolutely
forget that. So I think there's plenty of fantasy points available here, and I think this is one of the key games.
I do think one thing about Dalvin Cook, and now it could always change because he could break a big play a couple times or something, but if you're playing Cook, I actually think I might look for Cook a little bit more outside my stacks because that sort of is the recipe to slow Arizona down, grind it on the ground or whatever. So that would sort of take away from their options, although they can score in 90 seconds anyway. And then one guy we didn't, James Conner got some of the workload yet last time, but I think that Chase Edmonds is in play as well.
I agree with that.
I really think this whole game makes a lot of sense. So I have this as one of my favorite games as well. And all the guys you mentioned make a lot of sense to me. I like the Hopkins Jefferson or Hopkins Thielen thing too. But Cook is definitely in the mix. And the only thing I won't be doing probably, maybe I could take one shot on Tyler Conklin, but I don't think I'm targeting tight ends, but pretty much everything else in this game I'm all for.
Yep. All right. And that was the first game of the late slate. And late slate's got a lot of juice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So next game is another one that I like. And boy, what a surprise. I think that Tampa Bay could score a lot of points in this game. I think Tom Brady is pretty good at football. I think that Antonio Brown is pretty good at football. I think that Chris Godwin is pretty good at football. I think all those guys are pretty good at football. And I think that Calvin Ridley is a good run back. And I think that the chalky tight end from last week, Pitts, is a good run back as well. And I think it's a pretty obvious spot, I guess. But I'd be remiss to not point it out. So I do like Brady with Brown, with with Godwin, and I like the run backs with Ridley and Pitts.
Yeah, so I definitely like the Tampa receivers. There's just so many of them. So I just sort of have them in a group. Like I think maybe Godwin makes the most sense, all in the same price range. I do love Antonio Brown, as we all know. But I think they can do a lot of whatever they want against Atlanta. And I think Atlanta's going to be playing catch up, which brings me to them probably even letting him catch some underneath plays. They like to run things one-on-one quite a bit in Tampa Bay. And we saw it against the Cowboys, somewhat to effectiveness and mostly not effective. But if you're going to run one-on-one guys against Ridley or Gage, I want whichever one you're going to be doing to. My guess is they'll do it more with Gage. But I like the idea of taking shots on both those guys, Gage and Ridley. So I definitely have that as a really, really good option. I'm not using the quarterbacks in this game though this week, and I'm not using the running game for either side.
Moving on.
Okay, moving on. Why don't you start us off with Tennessee and Seattle?
Let's go.
These last two games are my favorite games.
if you're winning money after the 1 p.m. games, do not start putting down the down payments on homes quite yet.
Yep.
Yeah. So Seattle's another one. Let's roll with Mr. Wilson. Let's roll with Mr. Lockett. Let's roll with Mr. Metcalf. And let's roll with Mr. Brown from Tennessee. Very moto type idea, but sounds good to me.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. I also like a little bit of Carson, and remind me in December to play Derrick Henry, but I'm not ready to play him yet.
Yeah, I would take, like, I think they need to figure some things out in Tennessee, which might mean that they try to feed Derrick Henry even more. And I know it didn't look good week 1. I'm okay to look past it at low ownership this week. So I will take some shots with Henry. But I am going to take some Julio Jones, AJ Brown shots to run back with my Wilson to Metcalf, Wilson to Lockett combinations. I also like the way that early on in when they had big play downs before it got completely out of hand, kind of. I know they'll use Disley, but I don't mind Gerald Everett again at no ownership as a cheaper tight end option. So I really like this whole game. This is, I would say it's somewhere between, I guess it's either second or third on my list of favorite games. But I really like the Wilson combination. I think you can play him with Metcalf and Lockett, but I would prefer probably playing him with just one and hope that he runs one in or something like that. And I like the Tennessee run back with either the Henry, but more so the Julio Jones and Josh Reynolds, with a little bit of Anthony Ferkser in the same category as Everett. I think there's a lot of way you could stack these teams and then just mix around and get like 12 different lineups that are all similar using this as a main stack. I really like this game.
And if you didn't like any of that, you could play the next game, which I like as well. So I like Dallas. I like Prescott. I like Cooper. I like Lamb. I like Keenan Allen. I like Eckler from the Chargers. I don't like Zeke. And I think this game all Dallas games can go nuts until further notice. And if you want to do it the other way, I mean, you want to put Herbert as a quarterback and do it a little differently. You could certainly do that also, because Dallas defense was certainly not the right home of that either. So I think you could stack this game both ways, and this is my last game that I like, and it's the last game of the slate.
Yeah, it's my favorite game of the slate. I really like I think there's every which way we could include Eckler in it. I'm not going to leave out Zeke at all. I'm totally fine with going back to him. That was the worst possible matchup for him, and a bad game script on top of it. But Pollard does look better in the backfield, just for what it's worth in real life. He actually looks better. Eckler, it always feels like a lot to pay for a guy who's like, look, he gets a ton of touches and stuff, but he's not going to carry the ball 20 times. So it's not like they're going to run the clock out with him exactly. They will use him a little bit, but they're going to play some Justin Jackson, some Larry Roundtree. But Eckler will catch a ton of passes if that's how the game script works. So I kind of like Eckler running it back on the Deke lineups, along with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And then on the Dallas side, in terms of picking a receiver, it's pretty clear that, I mean, look, they're all really good receivers, right? And we've now lost one of the guys out of there. Who they look for a lot is Gallup. So it makes Amari and Lamb stronger. But I actually think that Lamb is my preferred of the two. I like both of them. But I think that, look, Cooper runs better routes. Lamb is the guy they're trying to get involved in every play, who can make everything happen once he touches the ball. The one guy we might want to, get in here a little bit is Cedric Wilson. Sort of filling that Michael Gallup role at 3,100. We know how much Dallas can throw the ball. So especially if you're doing like a big time game stack, maybe you play one of Lamb or Cooper with Cedric Wilson. I don't mind that at all. I don't want to get messed with the tight ends because they'll go to both of them. I do think that Jared Cook is in play somewhat on the other side, but I think mostly, I want every part of the running, but more importantly, the receiving part of this game. And I will be playing both quarterbacks as priorities here. Of my three games that I, Texas, Seattle, Tennessee, Seattle, Chargers, Dallas, Arizona, Miami, this is the only one where I want to start both quarterbacks in stacks. So I really, really like this game, and I think this has got a shot to really be like a monster shootout type game. It's going to be very Dallas heavy. I actually think if you're going to bet on this game, you might want to think about betting Dallas to either win or cover, because it's going to be like a home game for the Cowboys in LA here. And I think that I think the Chargers are better than people think, and I think the Cowboys showed that they were better than people thought they would be. So I'm into both sides of this game a ton. This is definitely my favorite spot.
Yeah, I mean, I got 5 top teams, and 4 of them are the 4 o'clock games. So
Yep.
yeah, I like by the way that Cedric Wilson idea, and it certainly in play in the late slate. But
yeah.
but like I was bringing up, what's his name, Marshall from Carolina. I mean, like, if you're going to do that, like you said, may as well take a shot with someone from a key game. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I'm into that actually. I think that's a really, really good call.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, so I have a lot of other spots I'm looking for, but in terms of using the quarterback to receiver and run it back combos, my games are Tennessee, Seattle, the Chargers, Dallas, and Arizona, Minnesota. I like the Allen to Diggs combination as another thing, with maybe a Waddle or a Parker, and maybe in some lineups, but I don't like it as much as that game. I like Chubb and the Cleveland D together in some certain spots, maybe even include a little Brandon Cooks on the other side, having to throw the ball. I think that, I forgot about one guy here. Don't forget about Mike Williams again. People all forget about him every week, and he just showed us that was a mistake last week. Stafford, I like Stafford to cup in that game. And running back with Indy receivers, but probably not going to definitely not going to play any Wentz. I like, who do I have here? Harris and the Raiders receivers in that game. McCaffrey and Kamara, probably not necessarily against each other, although I don't really mind it. They could put up a bunch of yards between the two of them. And then just individual plays, even if you're not playing the games. One of Lamb or Cooper, I think, has a monster week. Keenan Allen, I think, probably has a monster week. And I actually think Zeke's price makes him very, very playable. This is not the Tampa Bay defense. Patriots defense, Fant and the Denver receivers, Goddard and the Rams D all are my standout other plays.
Yep.
Right.
I reiterate, Najee Harris is my top kind of like play to hold everything together. And I like those, the like you said, Chubb with Cleveland defense, Montgomery with Chicago defense, and Harris with Steelers.
Yeah, I like that lineup you got up there right there. It's a good start for me.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, good luck to everybody out there this week. We will have more stuff coming up for you, more videos, me and Rhodey, maybe me and Sheets. Certainly we'll cover some positions. We'll answer some questions. We'll do the live before lock at 11:30 Eastern on Sunday morning. And let's crush it this week. Let's get our NFL stuff going like we do Sheets's LOL and NASCAR and baseball and all that stuff.
Yep.
Good luck, everybody.